Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Cartel Hour, where we do live tastings and discussions of all kinds of spirits with the people who make them, use them, and enjoy them. My name is Cameron Stevens.
And my name is Seth Benheim. Together, we're covering everything from familiar bottles to rare and exclusive releases from near and far away. If it's distilled, it's on the podcast.
Featured in Rolling Stone, GQ, Men's Journal, and more, we bring celebrity guests, master distillers, and industry veterans to chat about the latest in the spirits world. If you've been exploring the rum world, you may have heard how incredibly different Haitian rum is from all the other types of rum, Clairin specifically, the name for their native rum. That being said, we felt Clairin was far more akin to mezcal and other agave spirits, with over 500 micro distilleries operating on the island, creating a wildly unique local spirit that remains relatively unexplored in the world of cane distillate. Natural, uncut, unfiltered, and different from everything you've ever had before. It's time to explore the world of Clairin with one of the most knowledgeable rum experts we've ever encountered, Kate Perry from La Maison Velier. We're here to learn a little bit and drink a little bit, so grab a glass and let's enjoy. Everybody to the Infusery for another episode of the Cartel Hour. My name is Cameron Stevens.
And my name is Seth Benheim.
And we're going to be drinking some rum with Kate Perry today. Kate, how's it going?
Hi, it's better now. I've been so looking forward to having this little time and chat with you guys. So it's a good day. We've been talking about it for a while, so I'm glad it's working out.
I know. This is exciting. We have you have some of these incredibly colorful bottles. And I'm sure you have colorful stories to go along with those. But before we kind of get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and your position within the world of rum.
Yeah, so I got started in rum back in 2011. I was running a Spanish tapas bar wine program and sherry program, which has nothing to do with rum, but the owner of the establishment really liked to drink rum. That was kind of his thing of choice. When he would come down and sit at the bar, he would ask for a pour of rum. And he came down once and said, "Hey, what do you think about opening a rum bar?" And I said, "Boss, I don't know anything about rum." And he said, "Well, I just signed on this place next door and I think we should do it." And so I booked myself a 2.5-week trip to the Caribbean, where I showed up on islands. I rented a car. I drove around the islands and stopped at every single distillery on the way, and had a blast and just really fell in love with the Caribbean culture, the Caribbean people, the rum, the
There's
island
no better
life.
way to learn.
Yeah,
exactly.
Jump
hands-on trip.
Exactly, yeah. So then we opened a bar called Rumba in 2012 that I managed for 5 years. And the coolest stuff, just the stuff that spoke to me the most, that I felt the most intriguing from managing a rum bar, all just had this little word at the bottom, Velier. And I got, like a lot of people, a little bit obsessed with what is this Velier? What does this mean? And found this Italian company that was just so on the cutting edge of all of the cool kids stuff. Just the language that they were speaking was so different than everybody else. And, I graduated with an anthropology and a geography major, so I'm really into people and places, and their conversation about the communities and the traditions and the people that are behind these cane spirits really just spoke to me. So they called me up one day and said, "Hey, Kate, we got your name. We'd like to invite you to come to Haiti to tour some Clairin distilleries. Are you available?" And I remember I think my face went just pale, and I was like, "Yes. Okay, Velier.
Cancel all my plans."
Yeah. When do we leave? And my colleague was like, "Kate, who was that?" And I said, "It was Velier." They said, "Velier, like your obsession, Velier?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "What did they want?" I was like, "They invited me to Haiti He's like, "You're going, right?" I was like, "Yeah." So I spent a week in a Jeep, just jeeping around rural Haitian villages, stopping and sipping Clairin and meeting people and getting to know both sides of my company. Happened to be on that trip. And afterwards I said, hey guys, I know that you don't have any intention on coming to the US market, but if that ever changes, please let me know. Like, this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my life that I had no idea. And they said, actually, we are, and let's talk about it. And 3 weeks later, I gave my notice and moved to New York and launched La Maison Velier for the US.
Wow.
Amazing.
So I managed, so I managed the US market for the company. Which started out just being New York, then New York, California, and now we're in 22 states. So I've been very busy.
Wow.
Yes, you
Wow.
have.
Yeah, just
One person for
sharing the
22
love.
states.
Yeah.
You're managing
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's,
have a colleague that's based in New York, so he handles New York City. His name's Jan Warren. He's lovely. Lots of great dad jokes. If anyone ever needs a dad joke, hit up Jan Warren.
Well, you're on the right
And then
podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I have everything else.
There you go.
Well,
There
I
you
think,
go.
if you heard that, kids listening, if you drink enough of one thing, you might get offered a job.
Yeah, and you might get to fly around and taste a bunch of it
They might
before it
send you
happens.
to Haiti.
That's great.
Yeah.
Dreams do come true.
Exactly. Yeah, I really have my dream job. I didn't really want to come to the supplier side. I didn't want to do brand work. I really love educating about the category of rum and all of the intricacies within that. And so representing like one distillery wasn't what I wanted to do, because I wanted to talk about rum. So I really get to do that through just some of the most incredible projects and relationships that we have. So
Wow.
I have the best job in the world. I'm
Okay.
very happy.
Well, I think we have the second best job if we get to hop on a podcast and
drink
taste
it.
this stuff
that's
with you.
Yes.
Mel.
Second best job is drinking with the people who have the best job.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
I love
Clairin,
it.
so let's,
Yeah.
what's in a name? Tell us, what is Clairin? You give us a little backstory here about this distillery, its name, and where that all comes from.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, like, disclaimer, I'm a white girl from Maine. I'm not Haitian, but I just feel so privileged and honored. And it really is just the honor of my life to be able to work with this spirit and with the people and communities involved in it. I really feel that I'm, a guest in this world with the privilege and also the responsibility of sharing this spirit. Before we started bottling these beautiful, colorful, incredible bottles right here, Clairin had never been bottled before. So if you wanted to drink Clairin, you had to go to Haiti. You had to go find a little distillery. When you smell sugarcane boiling, you can pull off over to the side of the road and like go into the cane fields. And there might be a little distillery producing Clairin for their local market, for their village. If you're in a big village in Haiti, maybe there's 10, 15, 20 distilleries. If you're in a small village, maybe there's only one. Fritz Vaval is the only distillery in his village of Cavaillon.
Oh, wow.
And
so isn't there like over 500 on the island as a whole?
Yeah. If you go back into the sort of history of rum and back to the 18th century, that would have been really common. Sugar cane products, so sugar and rum were the biggest commodities of those centuries. And the Europeans were literally mining the wealth out of the Caribbean in terms of sugar and in terms of rum. Haiti had an incredible amount of sugarcane growing, but so did Barbados and Jamaica, Cuba. A lot of the islands would have had sugarcane fields with little sugar manufacturers, so they would have produced the sugar there, and then a distillery to deal with the runoff, and they would have been exporting sugar and rum simultaneously off of the island. With the sort of centralization of sugar production, where you didn't have hundreds of little sugar manufacturers with attached distilleries, and we moved to having one sort of central or maybe two central sugar factories on the island. This closed down all of the little sugar factories, which then closed down all of the little distilleries. So if you went back to 18th century Jamaica, there would have been hundreds of distilleries. Barbados, they cut down every tree on the island to plant sugarcane. The rest of the Caribbean, the same. Today, there's 4 distilleries in Barbados, 7 in Jamaica, 6 in Jamaica. But in Haiti, there's still over 500, because in Haiti, the history is a little bit different. You have to understand that in 1804, the Haitians declared independence. They were the only Black republic to rebel against the colonialists and win their independence. They're totally badass. And so so they really have a different history where, you know, they're in a sort of interesting socio-political, economical situation today. But on the other hand, they also skipped several generations of chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides and centralization. So the diversity and the biodiversity of the raw material, of the sugarcane, of the vegetable. I've never had more delicious food than in Haiti. Everything, you know, the bananas are so fragrant, and there's hundreds of different kinds. The pineapples are so juicy and they still taste of pineapple. The limes are these little citron vert, they're like this big, and our limes are just sour, but their limes are like just aromatic and like perfumey, and they're incredible. So the quality of raw material there, because they've skipped all of this industrialization, is just, it's so powerful. It's wonderful. You know, 500 plus, who knows how many little distilleries producing local wild spirit for their local village. So it's really incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't make you not want to go. It makes you want to run there.
Yeah.
Haiti is amazing. The country really, it drips in Clairin. Clairin is so tied into the Haitian culture, and it drips in art. The art in Haiti is absolutely incredible. You can see some kind of examples on the bottles here. These are all Haitian paintings.
They're just
But
exploding
really,
with
Yeah,
color.
incredibly colorful.
For those listening, I highly recommend running to YouTube and watching the video version of this
At
podcast.
least to just see these
Just to
bottles.
see the bottles,
I mean,
yeah.
incredible.
And so, you know, I want to draw a parallel here. It sounds a lot like what we had discussed on a prior episode regarding mezcal and the palenques, where you go from town to town and village to village, and you have these micro distilleries producing, you know, micro quantities of their various mezcals. So Clairin is more of a definition of a type of rum.
Yeah, you know, I think that
region?
if you sort of go to like the lowest common denominator of production of spirits, so you have the thing that grows nearby that produces sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be it sugar cane, which lucky for us, the sugar is readily available. You just have to crush it, or agave, where you have to cook the sugar out, or, you know, grapes and fruit spirits of Eastern Europe. Gragu in Cape Verde, the wide variety of local spirits all over the African continent. If you have the local thing that produces sugar and you coax out the sugar and put it outside and let the natural yeast of your area ferment it, because natural yeast is free, right? Everything will start fermenting eventually if it has sugar in it.
Right.
And then you take that and you put it through a little pot still, because that's the technology that existed at the time. And then you drink it off of the still. There's more in common with local wild spirits than there probably is with the spirit and the sort of modern box that we like to put it into. So sure, Clairin is a type of rum. It's made from sugarcane, but there's probably more in common with, you know, wild fruit spirits from Europe and mezcal and, you know, wild cane spirits from around the world than there is with Clairin and rum. I sort of break down rum into a couple different categories, where the first is it made from molasses or cane juice or cane syrup? In some cases, this one's made from syrup. And then is it made on a pot still or a column still? There's, you know, a lot of differentiation within the fresh cane juice category. You have rum agricole from Martinique, Guadeloupe, and the French Islands. You have cachaça down in Brazil. You have gragu in Cape Verde. You have incredible aguardiente from Central and South America. And then you have Clairin from Haiti. So it's a type of fresh cane juice spirit, but it's Clairin is Clairin, rum is rum.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You know,
Got
it's also a cultural definition.
Yeah,
Got it.
it makes a lot of sense actually, and I wanted to make that distinction. You said it perfectly. Hopefully, I'll remember all of that. But
Yeah.
Well, what I love is just this idea of the local spirit. I mean, working with the local soil, the local plants, the local yeast, the local tools available to actually make the spirit. I mean, I think, yes, there is some level of, helpfulness to the consumer to kind of try to associate things into boxes just so you kind of know where
Yeah,
you're generally
Exactly.
starting. But at that point
totally.
in time, this is such a great opportunity for people to, even if they know a lot about rum, branch off and to know about something very different that might bear some resemblance, but maybe not as much as you might think to the stuff that they are already
Yeah.
drinking. So
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people who like mezcal, they immediately understand Clairin because it, like you said, it is a lot of the same conversation. It's very local based. Being a wild spirit, your natural yeast that exists in Saint Michel versus Cavaillon are going to be very different. The wild yeast that exists here versus across the pond for me that I'm looking at is very different. So when you have very, very localized spirit, you're going to have tons of differentiation, as well as the type of cane. In Haiti, there's hundreds of different varieties of cane. The rest of the rum world kind of uses the commercialized cane that exists for rum production. Here you have these spindly little canes like this, and you crush them and very little comes out, but they're so aromatic and they're so different, these old varieties of heritage sugarcane. Also, the natural wine world really understands and clings to Clairin a bit because it's sort of where natural wine and distillation kind of intersect. It's a lot of the same conversations there too. Or rum, if you're into, the rum agricoles of Martinique and Guadeloupe, if you like Paranubes from Mexico, I love Paranubes, or any sort of rum with the taste of rum, as I like to say, flavorful rums. If you have this beautiful liquid coming off of a still, it's so flavorful that you don't need to age it. You can age it. It's delicious.
now, is that a practice in Haiti at all? Is there any barrel aging taking
There
place, or it's
is.
brown?
So this range of Clairin, this is 4 of the 500 plus producers of Clairin. It's a huge category and they're so different. I'm excited for you guys to taste through these 4 because you'll see how wildly different they are from each other. So it's a really, really dynamic category. But the umbrella company of these 4 bottles is called the Spirit of Haiti. And it's a company that is in partnership with the Lingue family in Port-au-Prince, and the 4 producers that we work with and La Maison Velier. And there's a little aging warehouse there that we have as well, where, when you empty out the Carigny casks of the world and beautiful cognac casks and incredible sherry butts, we had to send them somewhere. So a lot of the casks that Velier and La Maison du Whisky empty end up in Haiti, and we fill them with Clairin, really kind of experimentally to see what happens when you're coming off the still between like 45 and 60%. A lot of times that's a bit low even to put into cask, but Haiti is also a very hot climate, so you have that intensity of tropical aging
Sure.
working for you. So we put a bunch of Clairin in cask in some of the best casks of the world to kind of see what happens, and the results are really, really beautiful. So we have a range of Clairin ancien or aged, that is coming out. I have some Oloroso casks that are about to hit the market in the
Oh,
next
wow.
few weeks.
Nice.
I'm very excited about. I just got my samples here, so I'm going to run up and grab them tomorrow, I think, so I can taste them. It's been a minute.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Yeah, but they're really, really, really beautiful, but really lightly aged. I don't think they go much over like 34, 36 months. We write the age in months, because when you start to lose that sort of vivacity, that joie de be of the fresh cane, of the terroir, of the natural fermentation, then you kind of lose the soul of Clairin. So they're very lightly aged. We do have some longer aging products. In Europe, we just released Vieux Sajous, which is Michel Sajous's Clairin that was aged for 4 years. And for us, then it's rum. When it's about the cask and not about the raw material and the fermentation, it becomes rum. It's no longer Clairin.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. I've been kind of nosing our very first glass and listening to you talk about things like aromatic and bursting with flavor, and it is already very much happening.
Vivaciousness.
And it is already very much happening in a way that I like you said, I cannot quite relate it to anything else. It is entirely unique. So why don't we dive into this very first bottle that we have and the glass that we have in front of us?
Yeah, so what's in your glass right now is Clairin Sajous. This one here.
Coming in at 56.5%.
Yeah. So these are all off of the still. There's nothing filtered or fined or reduced at all. I don't know many spirits that have never seen a drop of water in fermentation or distillation. So there's never been a drop of water added to this spirit. It comes off of the still. We don't do anything, and it goes into the bottle.
Whoa. That is incredible.
Right?
That's different. The nose,
so
the nose is one thing, and the taste has got. Oh, give me a second.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, take a minute.
Well, I'll start with the nose. One of the things that I find super interesting about this particular nose is it's almost got this pear-esque cactus, a little bit of lime.
Cactus.
It's ever so slightly vegetal, earthy as well, but it's still like a bright earthiness to it.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me of different. Honestly, it is very much in the mezcal range.
It's a little. See, I'm getting a little ginny on it. I think it's.
Interesting.
It has a gin-like botanical.
Yeah.
At that higher proof, it's certainly got a bite at 113 that lets you know it's there. And you're getting, I get the prickly pear, cactus, a little bit of that like brandy-like quality.
Yeah, it's almost slightly vinous.
Ginny. It's really fascinating that there's so much
gosh,
flavor.
It's slightly tannic too. But there's something about I honestly, and this is going to be a ridiculous thing to say, but
I want to hear it.
I've never had anything quite grip my palate like this.
That was clear.
There's almost this like effervescentness that I know, because clearly there's no carbonation in this, but it's so bright and grippy as it goes down that I almost want to say it is. I don't even know how would you describe
the only
this?
cocktail I could make with this is 3 parts this and 1 part soda. And that's it. Just to give it bubbles, just to water it down. No, it's really, the nose smelled good. It was definitely different. The taste is very good.
Oh,
the taste is
so good.
The nose
and it's
was
great
like,
because
okay.
It's got a nice rounded sweetness to the body. It's a little kind of honey-esque in its sweetness. But what's great about this is I would not really call this a sweet spirit.
No.
It is, but in the middle, but it finishes nice and dry. And it is instead about this just sort of exploding botanical citrus realm that's just.
But earthy like a mezcal, which I think is
true.
It has this sort of depth of a brandy for me, the botanicals of a gin, and the earthiness of a mezcal. And and I say earthiness, it is not smoky.
No, or dark. It's not a dark earthiness. Well, so as we, as Clairin novices, are scrambling with our words to try to find out how to describe this, you, as the expert, Kate, how would you describe this?
I love what you guys are saying, and I agree with a lot of it. It's funny that, because this is my one that I love to use in like classic gin recipes and replace Sajous with gin. So I think that's quite fun. It's really like botanical. It's really green and grassy. It comes from the north of Haiti in a town called Saint Michel de Atalay. which looks just like the label. I don't know if you can see it here. It's just this
It just looks gorgeous.
Rolling green.
grassy, kind of just area where there's tons and tons of sugarcane growing here. Michel Sajous is the producer. He has a small distillery called Chelo. And it's all of those things that you guys kind of mentioned. It's bright, it's kind of grippy. He tends to make his cuts a little bit high, so his Clairin tends to be a little bit higher ABV every year. And I think that might kind of contribute to that kind of grippiness. It's really, really precise. It's very, very specific, and it's probably the most like, because these are bottlings of vintages. So if you taste 16 next to 2017, next to 2018, some of them are quite different, but Sajous always tends to be very, very precise, very, very specific across the vintages.
Which one are we drinking? What vintage
You're
are we
drinking
drinking?
2017.
17.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
And what would you find on the market today if you were to
where are
go
we
out?
at right now?
So in the market right now, we have 2016, which is what we first released. So if you find older bottles of 2016, grab them, of all of them, especially of Vaval, and I'll tell you why in a second. And then 2017 is what's released now. And then I just got a shipment of 2018. So when we get through this, there'll be 2018 available. And then we can do all the vertical flights, and I'm so excited.
That'll be fun.
The vertical flight will be cool.
Yeah.
And the proofs are changing, as you said, from vintage to vintage.
A little bit. You know, these spirits really tell the story of what's going on in Haiti when you have hotter years versus cooler years, very wet seasons. Like this year, 2020 has been a very, very wet season. So I would expect the 2020 Clairin to be very different than what we've had in the past. The 2016 in particular was the year that Hurricane Matthew came through the Caribbean and did a lot of destruction. So the wild yeast in the villages got all mixed up in the air. The sugar cane got very, very wet with the floods. So the Clairin from 2016 tasted wildly different from what we had in Europe for 2015 and 14, and wildly different than the 17 and 18 going forward. So it's really cool. I love that. You know, I think that the inconsistency of spirits is something that I really value. If you have a consistent thing on the shelf all the time, that's rather boring, isn't it? Like,
and it means somebody's had to doctor it to get there.
Yeah.
And I love this idea that this is coming in at full proof. I love that you know, it speaks to the fact that they're doing things their way and not being influenced by the rest of the market that says, hey, cut it down, or it needs to be at this, or this is for marketing purposes. It's like, this is what these folks drink there.
And
it's
that's
amazing.
Going back to local spirits. You're not making marketing decisions. You're distilling it, and then you're taking it from the distillery and you're drinking it, usually out of a plastic water bottle or a plastic jug. And that's the traditional way of drinking Clairin in Haiti, is off of the still or off of a big drum at the town emporium into a plastic bottle. And
so Haitians know how to have a good time.
They really
what you're
do.
saying.
There's a lot of similarities.
Yes. Haiti is the most fun. You have to go someday when it's okay to travel again. It's
sure.
Haitians know how to party for sure. Their music, compa, amazing. So grab the next one, the Clairin Vaval, because it's really fun to taste these. And if you guys want to leave, I don't know if you have enough glassware to leave a little bit in your glass, so you can kind of go back.
We have a
tiny bit left
of any of the other
bottles.
ones.
Cool. Yeah, maybe save a little bit just so you can revisit if you want to after, because they're all so different.
This one's got a little more funk on it. On the
So Michelle is up in the mountains. I call this one the mountain rum. It's really like botanical grassy green. This is the Clairin of Fritz Vaval, and Fritz is down on the southern coast in a town called Pignon. Haiti's kind of shaped like how's this video working? Like a backward C, like this. So Sajous is up here, and Fritz Vaval is on the southern side of the South Fork. And he's the only producer in his village, but it's just a kilometer off the ocean. So for me, like it tastes, I grew up on an island in Maine. It tastes like home. It tastes like this water that I'm on right now. It's like very like salty.
Yeah, it smells salty.
Air. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I
Super
mean, it still
different.
has a similar earthy through line, but this I would call a bit darker of an earthiness. And I think there's a little bit more of almost like a chamomile type floral thing
Yeah.
happening, which is
I
really
don't
lovely.
I don't eat them, but this smells like oysters to me a little bit.
Oh, you get the
Which I
brininess.
don't. It's briny, yeah, briny, oily, and salty.
You so speak my language. So this is my favorite one to spoon a little bit onto oysters. This is like my oyster pairing
Could
spirit of
be.
the
There you
world.
go.
Yeah.
We get each other.
Yeah.
Now
Gin, oysters.
this also has a little more. It's a little more reminiscent. Recently, I drank some Hamilton Jamaican rum, and
Mhm.
this has a little bit of that funky, those esters. It
Oh,
really
wow.
gives off like. This is gonna sound bad, but it's not a bad smell, but it smells like a slightly like browning banana in a way.
Uh-huh.
It has
Yeah,
that,
that's
like
Like fermenting
really
a
fruits.
very strong
Yeah.
fermenting fruit
Yeah,
flavor
yeah,
of
for sure.
bananas and those esters you get off the still in some distilleries. If you go in at a certain time or catch a certain process, so especially if you smell like fermentation rooms or fermentation tanks, so you get that fermenting fruit
Mhm.
flavor on the nose. Now, again, like the last one, this could be a totally different thing happening when you taste it. So, Cam,
Taste.
Oh, I've already I've already gotten in there. It's really interesting. It is overall quite banana forward with its sweetness. It's I think it's sweeter than the last one, ever
Oh,
so
yeah.
slightly, and that carries through to
Little
the finish.
sour.
It's not as, yeah, it is a little bit sweeter on the finish. It doesn't dry out like the last one.
A little punchier on the sour finish almost. It's very interesting. This is different.
Yeah.
This is we got a whole different. These couldn't be more unalike in
Right?
one way.
I think this one, okay, it's not, it's still a much sweeter spirit, but there's almost like this like red pepper spice, not like vegetal red pepper.
Red bell pepper.
Yes,
Mhm.
the
Bell
bell
pepper.
pepper kind
Uh-huh.
of vegetal sweet spicy thing going on with it. Like there's a
Like a
slight
sweet bell pepper. The sweet bell peppers, you just pop them in your mouth. The little
I
ones.
think, and I think what you were touching on is this sort of sweet, spicy, sweet, sour kind of balance. This has it, and yes, it's worlds different than the last one we tasted, but quite good in and of itself.
It's less funky than the Hamilton I tried, which I don't know. I'm bringing that up, but it's the closest comparison I can probably make. Because
Yeah.
that's also a pot. This is pot still, I assume.
Yeah, these are all pot
All pot
still.
still.
Yeah,
So
Hamilton sources his rum from one of my favorite distilleries in the world called Worthy Park. And
Got
Worthy
it.
Park totally like has that sort of classic Jamaican pot still. Like Jamaican rum is so iconic of those overripe tropical fruits, the bananas and the pineapple notes. The
Yeah.
Jamaican fermentation style is very, very tropical funk. And
jackfruit.
yeah,
Oh, there you
Jackfruit.
go. There
That's
you
what
go.
it is.
Or like dragon
Totally.
fruit or something.
Yeah, like jackfruit and dragon fruit. But
Uh-huh.
really, jackfruit is a little meatier. You know,
a
jackfruit.
little meatier,
It's
a
that
little bit,
substitute, chewier.
a little bit greener and kind of like,
That's
yeah,
what it
or
is.
like,
Yeah, like that skin, like the
plantain.
green skin.
More than the
Yeah.
banana, it's jackfruit. It's
Yeah.
that really meaty, sort of fleshy fruit that has a bit more bite and chew to it.
So to
And-
me, this has like almost a Southeastern Asian slant to it, in terms of the flavor profile that I
Yeah.
get to it, and it goes with the fact that you mentioned
I would
jackfruit.
I would marinate like jackfruit and then top it off with like an Asian like sesame kind of thing with this. But this is definitely okay. I'm just gonna be very honest on the last. So
Yeah.
let's look at these last two. So I'm at like a B on this, B minus, and this it's not my flavor. And the 1st one, I'm at like an A.
Yeah,
the first one I
the
love.
first one was absolutely
The first
incredible.
one was really my speed. And
This one is just a little bit more polarizing.
I think
Uh-huh.
people would
But
love.
I can appreciate that too.
Someone's gonna love this and think this is eons better than the first one.
Correct.
I don't know if that's me, but it's certainly. I like it better than the Hamilton. The Hamilton was too funky, and I've also had like Dr. Bird.
Mhm.
I didn't
Also from
find.
Worthy Park.
Also didn't like. So maybe I don't love the Worthy Park style.
Well, you should also try Worthy Park from Worthy Park. People
Yeah.
ask me all the time, what rum should I try? And every day I say, try the thing that the distillery itself decided was iconic of its distillery and of its traditions to put in a bottle for you. So drink distilleries. So try Worthy Park before you decide that you don't like Worthy Park, because their liquid is fantastic. They do a really good
I
job.
100% will. This is really interesting. It's a very unique thing happening that from an aromatic perspective.
You know what I think is interesting about this one? I think that it needs food to come fully alive.
Also,
I feel like the first one, I felt like I could easily sip it on its own, no matter what I was kind of doing or pairing with or whatever. This one is such a strong and polarizing flavor that if you could find the right complement, it would just, it would just be absolutely incredible. But on its own, yes, it is a little bit more polarizing. And I'm with you. I like the first one a little bit better.
The second one, this Vaval, I would probably have a very tiny like nip of before dinner, even like as a starter.
Yeah, the first one I could sip
just to
before,
get
during,
my palate
and after.
ready. The first one, the Sajous, I would pour a double of
you'd
big
pour a
glass.
Plastic jug. You might say.
I'd fill up one of those 64-ounce Quickie Mart big gulps.
Go to town.
I'd die at 56%,
sure,
but I'd die happy.
You'd have fun.
I'd die a happy man.
You'd have fun.
So what's next?
Before I want to point out real quick. I love that you said that you should have it with food, because I think that when you're talking about terroir-driven spirits, these are the best pairings for food possible. It's just like wine, you know, when you have really kind of crisp green things, you know, drink it in a glass, pour it in a cocktail, it's fantastic. The Clairin Vaval with seafood, that kind of salty brininess, I always put a little bit in my curry, I put a little bit on my grilled fish, I put it on my oysters. It's just like such a nice complement to food. And then, you know, you asked me before we started, you said, oh, this is an interesting choice of order. I wonder why we're starting with the hottest one first. And it's because we're going into weirdo town, guys. Like, strap on your seatbelts. Things are about to get really weird.
I think we're gonna end this podcast and look at each other and be like, what happened to us?
What just happened?
What did we just drink?
I'm ready to go on that journey. I feel like in my mind, if I close my eyes, I can be in that Jeep. You know, I can be in that Jeep in Haiti.
Terroir-driven spirits.
I can see the straw hut above my head and like sitting on like a log somewhere.
There you go.
Okay, so what do we have? We've got the Casimir.
The next one is Casimir, and Casimir's distillery is not far from Fritz Vaval. It's on the north side of the southern coast. So Vaval down here, Casimir up here. And this is like, for me, this is like jungle rum. This is where things get pretty interesting. Casimir, Faubert Casimir, has a very, very extended long fermentation. Wow. His distillery is it's a pretty big village called Baradere. There's about 15 distilleries there. And his is kind of known to being the very best one, but it gets wacky.
This is funny. Okay, I smelled it and I was like, oh God, this doesn't smell good. I didn't want to say it.
Really? I liked it.
I tasted it. It's delicious.
Yeah.
It smelled, first of all, the first one and the third one, the Sajous and the Casimir, both have very juxtaposing aroma to flavor. So this is a very, I don't know, I got a weird whiff on the nose, but man.
Well, it's got a bit of a funky nose. I will say this. The first thing I got was cherries, like bright fermented cherries, but I also got like this almost like tofu-esque funk on the nose too, which I think is probably what you're picking up.
I didn't like it, but the taste is earthy and almost smoky.
It's almost like a bit truffly. Like for me, it's very like truffle,
like mushrooms,
like savory mushroom.
Ooh, yes.
Okay, yeah.
Like forest floor, that like kind of moist, rich soil of a forest, of a tropical forest.
It too also has a bit more. It's a bit more in the floral realm as well. But yeah, I love this kind of dampness that you're talking about here.
Yes.
It's almost like a caramelized onion.
Yeah, there's definitely a caramelly.
Like a really nicely well cooked browned onion.
And there's a slight
So
kind of puffiness to it too, in terms of like almost marshmallow-esque
none
as
of
well.
that is. We do a lot of whiskey on this show, but none of these descriptors, mushroom,
We are
onion,
worlds
banana,
away
jackfruit,
from most of what
these
we
do not come up as descriptors on any of our whiskey
Ugh.
shows. I can tell you that.
It
It is
is
fun. It's so different.
It's there's like a
I do get a smokiness here.
there's a slight pepperiness. Almost,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is. It's if you grilled onions with salt and pepper, and you've got a little bit of that pepper, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of vegetal, a little bit of smoke. But it's so well rounded with this
fungal.
this like kind of grassy, damp earth flavor. It's quite
Yeah.
good. But again, you're right. It is somewhat polarizing, and I will put this in the category with the last one where I think it will probably shine with food a little bit more. It's wildly unique on its own.
Yeah, Casimir is also kind of the bartender's little pocket joy. Like bartenders really are like, what is this insane flavor that I've never had in anything else? I have to mix with it. And it goes so well with like baking spices. Casimir and like cinnamon or allspice or clove go really well together. And Casimir with like tropical fruits like pineapple juice and kind of bright tropical melons and all of those things kind of also shine. So Casimir is like a really, really fun thing to mix with, and I've tried some really incredible drinks over the last couple of years made with it. But so you guys just tried 3 and like they could not be more different, right?
Correct.
No, they could not.
And actually I love that relationship
incredible.
I love that relationship to mezcal as well, because especially when you dive into the real world of mezcal, it ceases to be this, synonymous smoky-esque tequila, and instead be wildly different bottler and producer and maker to maker. And I love that variation and to me, I also feel, so you've got the location, the terroir, but you also have the producers. And I would imagine there's an artistry and a creativity that these individual creators, these artists are putting into this bottle. And I love that it's shining uniquely in all 3.
Absolutely. I think that terroir is the soil, it's the air, it's the climate, it's the variety of cane that grows nearby. Because if you're on the ocean in the south versus up in the mountains of the north, you're going to have different varieties of sugar cane that grow, east to west, north to south. And it's also the mental terroir. When you're 4th, 5th, 6th generation producer and you produce in the same way that your family did before you, it's a mental know-how, right? It's the savoir-faire of how you do it, of your decisions based on how your family has always done it. So it's also the terroir of the mind of these producers. It's the terroir of Maison Sajous, of his hands and of his know-how, of Fritz Vaval, of Faubert Casimir. And I think that you're absolutely right. That absolutely shines through. And in a village with 15 distilleries, they don't taste anything alike. The distilleries of Baradère, the distilleries of Saint Michel, he's the only guy in Cavaillon, so it's just him. And everybody knows Fritz Vaval. I love running into his friends all over the world. But it's very, very different, and it's very very localized. You have the things that grow around you, and you've been making a local spirit for your village, for your community, for generations. It's such a joy to get to taste those and get to experience it outside of that and all together. And I love that you guys are tasting all 4 of these next to each other, because it really shows the full kind of story and culture and setting of this spirit. And picture that there's 500 of these, guys.
That's
amazing.
We're gonna taste 496 on the next show.
Yeah.
So just tune in for that episode.
How do we get them
Exactly.
all?
Things are gonna get real weird.
It's 300 hours long, and it's uncut and unfiltered.
The greatest episode ever created.
Which, if you do the math, that's more than 1 per hour. So
yeah, there you go.
1.5. I just want to say, I did like the Casimir better than the Vaval. So I'm at 132 so far.
So my tasting order tends to be least savory to most savory. So Sajous is kind of grassy, bright, green, botanical. Vaval is very like coastal, salty, briny, a little bit more savory, a little bit more richness. Casimir is like jungle funk. It's that like forest floor, overripe tropical fruit, kind of baking spice note. And these three are all made from fresh sugarcane juice. So the producers for these are grower producers. They're also farmers. So they grow their sugarcane, they cut it by hand, they bring it immediately to the distillery because sugarcane will start fermenting immediately. So you have to juice it right away. So they juice it, they put it outside, they let the natural wild yeast of their village do its thing. When you go there and you ask our nerdy questions, like, excuse me, Mr. Sajous, how long is your fermentation? They say, I don't know. And when it's done, it's done. You know, it's different throughout the year. When it stops bubbling, it's ready. Great. And so these are made from fresh juice, distilled on little pot stills, drunk off of the still. Great. In villages where there isn't sugar cane growing nearby, you can't cut cane from 30 miles away and transport it to your distillery because the cane will start fermenting immediately. Or in the off season, so in the dry season, you can cut the cane, crush it, ferment it, distill it. In the wet season, the sugar cane will swell and the Brix level of the juice will get too low, too diluted for the natural yeast to be able to ferment it right away. And so in villages where there's no sugar cane growing nearby, or in the wet season when you can't cut the cane and juice it, they'll use syrup. So the fourth one, Le Rocher, that you're going to try now, is produced from syrup. He's in the town called Pignon, which doesn't have a whole lot of sugarcane growing by, so he gets his syrup from the town that Michelle lives in, from Saint Michel de Atelier. They bring it down to Pignon and they dilute it back to the appropriate Brix level, the sugar content of the raw material for fermentation to happen. So they're naturally fermenting it in the same way. It's just made from syrup. And then the interesting thing about this is that I'm interested to see what you think of this. This is also an example of a point in time in history where the Jamaican producers were making an incredible amount of wealth for the British. It was a very gluttonous time over in England because of their wealth that they were extracting from the Caribbean in terms of sugar and in terms of rum. And this is a point in time where the French got kind of a consultation or invited some Jamaican producers to come over to Haiti to teach them how to make classic Jamaican style fermentation. So in this example, they're doing sort of the cornerstone of funky Jamaican rum, which is the use of dunder in their fermentation, backset in the whiskey world, kind of like a turbocharged sour mash. So they're putting what's left in their pot still after distillation, they're pitching that into their fermentation to boost up all the acids, all those long chain fatty acids, to increase the esters of the rum. So Le Rocher is incredibly estery rum. It's very, very different than the other three. Taste
yes,
it.
it
Let me know what
is.
you think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is different in a good way.
Okay, am I crazy in saying
It's
that
got
this has
color.
a bit of a color?
Yeah, it's got a little more color.
Just
Yeah, it does tend to be
so
a little
slight.
bit, yeah. Again, not
Almost like a
filtered
light
or
reposado
refined or
color.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, just ever so slightly
Ever so
Chardonnay-esque.
slightly, it tends to be a little slightly straw, slightly.
Yeah.
I get a bitter honey. Is one of my
Bitter
first
honey.
flavors.
Yeah, I get like green coffee on it.
Cool.
Interesting. Yeah, I get like a bitter honey. It's certainly sweet. I'm interested to know. See, from the order you gave in terms of savoriness, I would have put this second in the sense that I felt 2 and 3 were more savory flavors. This is super earthy, sweet,
It's almost woodsy. Yeah.
and woodsy. I don't know if I get
Like I would
a
almost
other than the fact that it is it has viscosity, it has fat, it's a thicker spirit.
It is. It's
It's
super
not
fatty,
thin.
super fatty,
It's
and
fatty.
buttery.
Yeah.
Buttery, oily,
buttery.
honey. It's thicker.
Yeah.
It's much thicker. It's not a thin, flat spirit by any means. And I would have said this was the same proof as the first one. I would have been totally thrown off. I would not have known that this was 46.9.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is this sort of woodsy type flavor that I'm having trouble placing specifically. What I almost feel like if I was blind tasted on this, I would have said this is ever so slightly barrel aged in a barrel that I've never heard of. Like that's what I would say. I'd be like, it's some exotic barrel that it just ever so slightly, and I think it's also because of that same mouthfeel that it's rich.
It's so rich.
Oh, it so is.
Deceptively feels oaky, even though I know it's not.
Even though I know it's not. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this one for me has a bit of smokiness to it as well. It's kind of like I describe it as like a barbecue potato chip because it's like fatty, smoky, kind of sweet, kind of tart with this like caramel buttery Scotch kind of sweetness on the finish.
The bitterness is there, and I love it. I love the bitterness of this. I think this is a really fine spirit. This is something I would drink. This and the first one are neck and neck for me. So I'm at
interesting.
I'm really at an A- on this. So let's for those I'm saying this, and you may have lost track of what I'm drinking if you're listening.
Le Rocher.
Le Rocher. So the Sajous was my A. I loved it right out of the gate. You started with the strongest one. That was amazing. So I'm at like a B- on the Vaval in that it was a bit funky for me, but if you're into Jamaican style, I think you, the listener, might like that. Casimir, I'm at like a B. I thought it was better, maybe even B+, better than the Sajous, the Vaval, better than the Vaval, in that it had a little more of that earthy, the nose was odd, but the flavor was amazing. And this last one, Le Rocher, is beautiful. Really, really nice. Love the bitter honey. Love that almost oaky like quality, like what you said, butterscotch. I love the density. The density and the robust mouthfeel on this. It really
and I always put Le Rocher last because of that really rich mouthfeel. It's hard to go from that to a lighter spirit. So Le Rocher with that density, that kind of just heavy heaviness on your tongue and on your palate, and it sticks around for a while too.
Oh yes.
Yeah, 1, 4, 3, 2. That's my order.
I'm going 1, 3, 4, 2.
Got it. So
I did actually like the Vaval a little bit better, and I almost like it kind of up here with the Le Rocher.
Okay.
I did really like that kind of funky fermented fruit of the Vaval. I did like that, so I do have to go 1, 3, 4, 2 here. But
and you know, I'm pretty sure, and I should test out this theory, but I've tasted a lot of people on these spirits have had really the pleasure of doing so. You know, rum spirits, you guys know this because you do this all the time. Spirits aren't necessary for our survival most of the time. Maybe
I disagree.
Yes, I'll argue.
I disagree.
But if it's not necessary for us to survive, right? It should be something that brings us pleasure. So it's really something that is so pleasurable for us. And I think that if you take 100 people and you say, here's 4 spirits, here's 4 Clairin, which one's your favorite? It's always 25, 25, 25, 25. It's always such an even split. And people say they're all really interesting. They're all super compelling, but this one's my favorite. This is the one that I'm most drawn to. And it's funny because this one's totally my favorite.
Okay.
Oh, really? The oyster one?
Yeah. Vaval. Oh, man. Vaval.
I liked it. But here's the thing. You don't eat oysters. I love oysters.
I don't like it. That's my whole thing.
And it took me a minute to get there. When I first tried these and was first getting used to them, I just had these 3, and I thought that this was just so versatile, so easy, maybe the most approachable in terms of maybe familiar to other things, so you're not quite as scared to be like, what is this? And then Casimir was like the wild child, and Vaval, I was like, I don't really get it. And the more that I started to enjoy it and think about it, it makes the best Negroni I've ever had. That sort of saltiness.
Ooh, okay.
It's super smooth. So
All
nice.
right.
I've really just fallen.
Yes.
I
I'm
feel
a
like Kate
coastal-
makes a good Negroni. I can just tell.
I know Kate makes a good Negroni because Negroni might be, if I had to pick a favorite cocktail, might be my favorite.
I served them
So-
at my wedding. So
There
I
you
love
go.
Negronis.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm all
try
for it.
a Clairin Negroni sometime. And this guy, this La Rocher, in like a really nice Bloody Mary, man. I'm
Ooh.
not like a huge Bloody Mary drinker, but someone made me one with this once, and it blew my mind. That kind of like density and richness of and smokiness really just like pops and sings and totally transforms the drink. But I think that when you're talking about cocktails, like, we spend so much time worrying about these house-made bitters and our 4-hour aged lime juice and all this very specific attention that we pay attention to everything else. But at the end of the day, make me a drink that tastes of rum. I want to taste the base spirit. And I think that when you're working with really high aromatic, high flavor spirits like this, it's kind of impossible not to. So show that off. Make me something that's simple, that kind of hugs the spirit and showcases it in a new light, or just pour it in a glass, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to go with this, is that I think that at the very least, they should all be tried neat. They certainly can and should be enjoyed neat in many different occasions.
Yeah.
But yes, for the adventurous and creative mixologist, these are going to be able to create things that literally cannot be made with any other type of spirit.
I have
I agree.
several questions
Yes.
that have come to mind.
Okay.
Several. So the first
Great.
is I'm Moroccan, so we drink arak
Yeah.
in our family. My grandparents and my uncles and everyone drinks arak.
Yes.
When you put ice, it clouds up. Will that
Yeah.
happen with these? Will these cloud up with ice in the
It
glass?
doesn't.
It's almost
No, they won't luge. One thing that will happen is that if you're in a couple months, this will happen when it gets very, very cold and the spirit has been sitting in a truck for a long time, or a very cold warehouse. You'll see some kind of clouds of long chain fatty acids kind of coagulate. And for me, this is a sign of a good spirit, because if that doesn't happen, they've been chill filtered. Which also removes some of the texture and some of the complexity. So I always see a little bit of cloudiness or particles in a bottle as a sign of quality. But these have not been filtered or fined or anything. So they don't luge with ice. They don't have that molecule, that chemical, but they will kind of get a little bit foggy in the cold weather.
Got it.
Long-chain fatty acids get cold.
So my other question is price.
Yeah.
We've not mentioned it during the show, but
Yeah.
what's the range of price points that somebody listening that's interested now may find these various Clairins that we've tried?
So as the company working with these 4 producers, we would never say that this one costs more than this one, or Casimir is worth more than La Rocher. They're all good. They all know each other. They're all friends. They're all partners in the company with us, and so they're all line priced. So they're all the same. So you're not gonna. Hopefully, you won't find one that's more than the other. But I'm curious what you guys think. I'm not sure if you know how much they cost.
I did not look it up prior to the show. I actually liked that, because really, I came into this episode particularly with like no expectations. I didn't even know what these were going to taste like, and even just seeing the proofs on them, and even just having drank. I think this is our if you're calling this rum, this is our 3rd rum episode, and I think after the first 2 rum episodes, I stopped with whatever I thought I knew about rum. I just kind of threw that out. So I'm not coming into it. I think I would do the same with mezcal now. I'm here to learn. And so
it's just spitball. What are you thinking? What would you, well, actually the more important question is, going in completely blind, what would you pay for it?
I would pay a solid, and I think for the ones I liked, I would pay up to like maybe $80-$90, but I pay that for any spirit I like. I don't like to spend more than $100 on spirits generally.
Yeah.
But that's just I'm not a rich man yet. But the ones I like, I pay about $80 or $90 for it, and I would probably pay for the ones I didn't like. I can imagine. I don't know. I don't know what these cost.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
My initial mind went to I'd be willing to pay $60 to $70 easily for these.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me that, I think because that's also sort of where like mezcal pricing is, and so you kind of
Yeah.
go to that
That is kind of what I'm basing it on.
connection.
I know
Yeah,
mezcal goes to like 100, and I have another question after this, but
Yeah.
let's
To,
wrap
Yeah.
to
it.
finish
So-
your, yeah.
they should be on the shelf like $40 to $45.
Oh, so I can
Yeah.
get two.
Yes, you can get to.
So I can get the ones I liked. I can get both
Yeah.
of them for the price of one in my
Well,
head.
and what's interesting is as we were talking about this and we did dive into mixing this, I was like, oh, I don't usually like to spend that much money on something that I might want to mix.
Exactly.
But now what's great is it is $45 is such like a versatile price point that you could totally just get this to mix if that's the only thing you wanted to do, but you could also sip it neat.
But my theory on that's different than yours, because you wouldn't want to mix it because you spent more than your comfort zone maybe on the bottle. Whereas
Correct.
mine is, I'm just a really bad bartender. So I
so
would
buy better stuff to
so
make
it's
up
like,
for it.
it doesn't matter what I'm putting at a certain point. So now I'm just throwing money away because my drinks are only going to be so good. There's a definite ceiling on my drinks. They're like B- at best. So it's not that good. And here's my other question for you is production quantity. I mean, these are 500 seemingly micro distilleries or very small production. How many bottles, cases, barrels worth, whatever unit you guys go by, how much of this stuff is made?
So, I mean, the sort of limitation is fermentation for this, because it's naturally fermented. So if the distillery has one big fermentation tank and it takes 8 days to ferment, they can distill once every 8 days, right? So if you get 2, then you can distill maybe twice a week. So a way that the producers that we work with have been able to sort of amp up production is by adding more fermentation tanks. You'll see a lot of like the tiny little distilleries will have like 50-gallon plastic drums that they ferment in, so that they have less liquid, but they have more available at different stages, so that they can distill a little bit every day, so that they can drink it every day. But it's really a wide range. So depending on how many fermentation tanks and how big your fermentation tanks are, kind of is the bottleneck for production. They're very smart. Typically, the distilleries will distill 50 gallons a day because that's the size drum that the liquid goes into. If you're distilling more than that, then where are you going to put it? So typically it goes into like one of those big blue plastic drums that you've probably seen in distillation, and then that goes to the village. The producers that we work with still feed their village first. The village is always the first, we don't want to take the Clairin from their village. So then they sell us the excess and we bring it from the village down to Port-au-Prince, where it sits and waits for the rest of the season to join. So they'll set aside a drum, and then when they have enough to fill up the truck will drive down to the Spirit of Haiti in Port-au-Prince. It'll wait there for the season harvest. And then we blend the season's harvest together for these guys, and we bottle it under the harvest. So 2017 is the entire harvest season of 2017 Sajous, etc.
Got it.
So what you're drinking in the village is the distillate by the day. This is the distillate by the harvest season.
Got it.
So I think, I did some quick math while you were giving that information. So basically, to quantify it in bottles, it's about, so 50 gallons is about 42 6-bottle cases a day at a maximum. And again, the stuff isn't aged any further, and it isn't diluted. So it's what you get is what you get right out. The yield is the yield. There's no additional water added, so it's not growing. Right. So you think about all that. So it's about 240 to 260 bottles per day is sort of the maximum. If they're producing every day, now, like you said, they could be producing every 8 days or
Right.
so. So
Or they
it's
could be
pretty
producing twice a day.
yeah.
They could be running their still 2 times a day if they have enough fermented wash.
That's
So
not,
it really
and
depends.
industry wise, you think about vodka or gin or some of these other non-aged white spirits that come, and those, you add water to them in every instance to get to the whatever proof you're trying to get to. Those are not, off the, no vodka or gins I know of or even have, and I've got hundreds,
Yeah,
are off the still products, right? That's not how vodka or gin are generally made. So,
exactly. It's also a very different still if you're talking about distilling up to 95,
oh, the
96%
yield is
in a
crazy.
multi-column versus
Oh yeah,
a small little pot still that takes an
exactly.
8-hour process.
Right.
Very,
So
very different.
for perspective, 240 to 60 bottles a day is very low yield, very rare in terms of quantity and availability.
Yeah,
So
these are small distilleries, guys.
I
Like,
feel special that we got to try
yeah,
it
I
they're
now.
so
know.
It
special.
I
feels
I'm
it
so
know.
feels a
glad you
little
guys
more
think they're
like
special.
now,
I think that they're just the most special, just incredible experiences, because they really are experiences to sit down and sip. And I think that it's something so unusual. And when we launched in the US, we were self-distributed, so it was me walking around to Death and Company, knocking on their door saying, hi, would you like to try this Haitian spirit? And I was so lucky that they said yes, please come in, and they put it on their menu. And we got written up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And it's
wow.
like, how often do you have this spirit that is so old and so immense that nobody has ever heard of?
Yeah.
So kind of launching not only this project, the Spirit of Haiti, and these producers, but really the category of Clairin as a category and all of its diversity has just been such an honor for me, and such a joyful experience that I've gotten to share with so many people across the country. It's been, and now you guys too, it's just been so wonderful.
I think it's worth
I
saying, they're lucky to have you too. I think the passion you have
Yeah,
is
you speak
palpable.
incredibly
You
eloquently
know,
about this.
you certainly are they hopefully, when, not if, but when they hear this episode, they know that they are very lucky to have someone so passionate about everything that's going on in that country and all the amazing things that are coming out of there, all the Clairin
Yeah.
category being represented by you and by these brands and these producers. So, you know, um,
Yeah, well, one
what
of
an
the things that,
experience.
speaking of being lucky, if people do find what we've said and what they've seen and heard here to be interesting and they'd like to pick up a bottle, my understanding is all 4 of these are on Cask Cartel. First of all, Kate, thank you so much for coming
Yes, thank
on.
you.
This has been an absolute pleasure. And I think one
Thank
of the
you so
places
much.
where I think it could be kind of fun to leave everyone is, because we've gotten to dive so deep into this spirit and these different types. Can you leave us with your favorite story of touring Haiti that has to do with drinking Clairin?
Oh man. When you go to small villages in Haiti, and you have white skin like I do, the kids are really curious, and within a few minutes you have like kids all over your arms, and it's they're so sweet and they're so playful, and they're funny. And the older generation is a bit more weary, which is totally understandable, because a lot of times the only sort of lighter skinned people that they see are missionaries or military. And so I'm really grateful that my experience has been really showing up in places, opening up the trunk and pulling out bottles of Clairin, turning on the music, and all of a sudden there's like just a block party around. It's been really
The
just
adults
really,
liven up
yeah,
a little bit when
yeah,
the booze comes out.
all of a sudden there's just like dancing and music, and Clairin poured around. And this happens sort of whenever we stop in small villages. And also the roads in Haiti tend to be very difficult. Sometimes they just sort of feel like small paths that are filled with rocks up the mountains. And last time I was there, I think we hit 14 flat tires.
Whoa.
That was our record, with four Jeeps.
Jeez.
And so it takes a couple of hours to to get the tires and to change it when you're teetering on a mountainside like this. And it's kind of the same thing. I think that like the best experiences I've had is just when, you know, you get out of the truck, it's going to take a while to change this tire if we have a spare or if we hadn't broken all the spares. And out comes the Clairin and up goes the music, and people just come out of the woods and look at you kind of funny, and they're like, okay, cool. And, you know, you just like meet people, and it's just such a convivial atmosphere that really, like, those are my favorite times, those just sort of unexpected, you know, smiling, laughing, happy people sharing Clairin in the street, on the street, up a mountain, just at all times. It's really special, you know. It's that kind of unexpected real life and that feeling of, you know, just convivial, bringing people together. Rum, I always say that rum is just best when shared with friends, and rum is this kind of spirit that just brings people together and creates such a happy environment. Like, you never think of rum as like something to go drink by yourself in a dark bar. Like, rum is a party, right? Rum is the life. It's really the joie de vivre of life. And so those are kind of my favorite memories, just those unexpected moments where, you know, really, damn it, we have another flat tire, but then, you know, people from the village come out and you're just in a street party, like sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you know what? It's okay. It's going to be fine.
The people of Haiti are going to be pissed off if you ever step out of a vehicle without 2 bottles of like rum in your hands, and then like, where's like, people,
right? Kate always had
Kate
some.
showed up.
What's
She got
the deal?
She got a flat tire. She came out of the car, and all these people start, you know, coming out of the forest with cups and music, and she's like, no, I'm actually out of rum. And they go, oh, what the hell? We saw you get out of the car. Where's the rum? I thought it was a party.
You know, last time we were there, I think it was probably 3 a.m., 2 a.m., something like that. And we were out and we didn't have any. And my colleague said, you know, hey, does anybody have any Clairin? And everybody's like brother or uncle, or with 500 producers, everybody knows someone who makes Clairin. And so this guy said, I got you. And he disappeared for maybe 45 minutes. Then he came back with 2 water bottles filled with Clairin that his uncle had produced. And it was fantastic Clairin. You know,
I
just
love that.
Drinking it on the side of the road, passing the water bottle around. I think I still have that bottle somewhere.
No, there you go.
I'm not going to Haiti without her.
That's exactly. Well, I'm so happy that we're getting this opportunity to finally start to taste this spirit in the United States. Is being introduced to this consumer and us as consumers. And thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me.
I feel like I leveled up like crazy today from a knowledge perspective.
I'll have to listen to this episode a couple times just to make sure I got it all.
But also, like, you know, what we said at the very beginning, where if you sort of take this as a spirit and compare it to the category, like, you guys have now tried all 4 of these, and if you know, you tell someone that this is rum, it's probably not what they expect.
No. That I will. Maybe that's a great way to leave this. Is if you take away one thing, it is not rum. It is something very, very different, and enjoy it and explore it, please. So.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Kate. We really appreciate it. All right. Cheers.
Pleasure.
Cheers. Take care.
Hello everyone, Cameron and Seth here. Just a few more things before we wrap up. First, you can always head on over to cartelhour.com for the show notes, which will include links to all the spirits mentioned and, of course, consumed on the podcast.
Absolutely. If you're interested in purchasing any of the spirits mentioned on the podcast, go ahead and click any of the links to be taken directly to those spirits, or visit caskcartel.com. They are America's largest online premium spirits marketplace and have been featured in Rolling Stones magazine, Men's Journal, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes, MarketWatch, and many others.
Yeah, they are awesome and super mobile friendly too. They're a fantastic resource to search through different types of spirits, and their platform is easy and straightforward. If you don't love driving around to every single liquor store in town and hoping they have what you're looking for, Cask Cartel is certainly the best e-commerce spirits platform platform I've personally come across.
Couldn't agree more. And you can find them on social media at Cask Cartel, and you can find us at Cartel Hour for the podcast, where you can find information about upcoming episodes and live tastings at the Infusery.
And speaking of those live tastings, for those living in or visiting the Los Angeles area that are truly intrigued, if you want to drink along with us, we would love to have you come and enjoy an evening at the Infusery to drink through a carefully selected assortment of spirits.
We offer custom flights and have a robust library of over 700 spirits to choose from. Visit our website for more information on how to become a member of the Cartel Club.
And if you're a spirits brand that would like to be featured on the podcast, please email us or send us a direct message on Instagram.
Thank you everyone for listening, and remember to always drink responsibly
and in good company.